Hi guys, it's Jake. I'm here with Missy, and we're going to talk about coming out. So, what was it like coming out to people? How did it feel? What were their reactions?
So I had a very positive experience. My initial coming out, it wasn't a big announcement really. I didn't have this big kind of realization moment. It was more that I just realized I was open to it. At some point in college, I realized like I would never deny myself love, no matter what the packaging was. So that's kind of irrelevant to me. As long as you're attracted to someone, you can't control what you're attracted to. Sometimes there's no way to explain it. So I came out because my partner, who I've now been with for almost 11 years, we met at work. She pursued me. We kept it quiet for a couple of weeks just because workplaces like that could be kind of gossipy, and I didn't know how it was going to go. And it was kind of a party atmosphere, so I didn't want to deal with that nonsense. So I went home to Long Island, where I grew up, to see my parents. And my dad was the one who guessed it. It was really weird. And so I, up till that point, had dated men, and none of which my father approved of. They were never good enough. And he has exacting standards, and he's kind of terrifying. So he said, "Are you seeing anything?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "What's her name?" And my mouth fell open because I'm like, "How the hell do you know this?" And I said, "Lisa." And he goes, "Okay." He goes, "Tell me about her." And it was just me and my parents sitting at dinner. And I was like, "Well, she's beautiful. She's kind. She's generous. She's very loving. She's really talented." I said, "And she treats me really, really well." And I think that's all he needed to hear. As a parent, I think that's the one thing. Like, all the other stuff doesn't matter, but that is the one thing. And my mom started to cry, and I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "I just don't want anyone to be mean to you." And, it's like, it doesn't matter. I was 22, and it doesn't matter how old you are. They're always going to view you as their kids. And so I said, "You know what? I'm ready for it. And this is worth it. Like, if you love someone that much, like, you'll do anything for them anyway." So I said, "Mom, like, don't worry about it. Like, whatever people are gonna bring, like, I can handle it." And so at that point, she went into the kitchen. She was kind of starting to clean up from dinner, and I was just outside with my dad. And he went into the garage, and he brought back out some cigars and 2 little glasses of scotch. Again, I was of age, so it's appropriate. And so he he lit the cigars, gave us each a glass and cheers and said, "To your coming out," And the funny thing is too, he goes, my middle sister was in the military, and she was always, a little more tomboyish, and always very athletic, and she was in the Marines for 5 years. And he looked at my mom and he goes, "Ha, we thought we might have this conversation with Leanne." And they laughed about it, and that was that. And then that was that. And with our peers, we eventually told everybody after a couple of weeks. We just kind of, when something is new, you want to see where it's going before you make a big deal out of it. Like, I didn't want everybody in my face, And they were so nice, and they were like, "Oh, we kind of knew," or, "We're so happy for you." And because I had been at that workplace for 2.5 years, she was new, and so she was starting to get to know everybody. She's a lot more introverted than me, so for her, I think it was a little more intimidating. Like, these are all my friends, and you got to kind of draw it out of her a little more. So they were all really lovely to us, and they were so happy, and it was fine. And so I think we got in our own heads about it, and we didn't really need to.
Experience.
Yeah, I know. Like, your brain can be so loud sometimes,
It's like, I came out with someone once, and they're just like, "Okay."
Right. Well, it's so much different now. Even I'm 33, so that's 11 years ago, right? Even then, it's like so much has changed in that time. Like, I feel like my high school experience is probably it's very different from what yours is going to be.
Yeah. When you were in a relationship with men, how was that for you?
So I what's really strange is that over time, it's like I realize I'm more attracted to androgynous type people. Male, female, trans, doesn't matter. And in high school, I dated probably the most manly guy I'd ever dated, and then it all just went downhill. And as you know, but I was happier and happier with people who were a little bit less hung up on gender roles.
Yeah.
And that's what it is that I'm very put off from like typically masculine men that have a little more testosterone in them, or it's not just that, it's also the mentality that goes with it, having to demonstrate your alpha maleness all the time. Like that turns me off. And so it was like, the boy I dated in high school he was a sweet guy, and he was, he had a lot of good qualities and stuff, and I definitely was in love, and I'm glad I had the experience, but it was like when we broke up for the last time, we were together for about 4 years, and it was like, it was probably a little too serious for that age. His parents went through a very hard divorce, and I kind of helped him through that. It was like heavy stuff I think I started dating when I was 14, so that was a little much, right? Yeah. But be that as it may, I learned a lot about like what I wanted from other people. And we eventually, I realized we were going on very different paths. Like you either grow together or you grow apart. And so broke up with him, and then the next boy I dated through college on and off for 2 or 3 years. It was a very different experience because we were really good friends first. And so sometimes, that's great to have that foundation, but sometimes you know too much about each other. And I think that's kind of what happened, but also we were running at like the same frequency. We were both very intensely emotional people, very demonstrative, and you can't have two divas in a relationship. Like it just doesn't work. And I didn't realize it then that I needed somebody to kind of bring me back down to earth. And and he was a little bit more in touch with his like feminine side. He was Latino, and he wasn't like he didn't subscribe to that kind of traditional machismo kind of stuff. He was more of a mama's boy, to be honest. Like I had to teach him how to do his laundry when we moved in together, and I was like, I should have known that. But we lived together, and that was great because if we hadn't, I think that it would have been drawn out for years and years because we were best friends, we had amazing chemistry, like that wasn't the problem. It was it was just more that we're too alike. And so I think that living together, it speeds all that up. You realize what a person's really like when you live with them. It's I think everyone should do it before they try to get married, because like how else are you gonna know what someone's really like?
I agree with this.
Yeah. So so it was, I could say like if I had, it's hard for me to imagine me not having my life with Lisa now, because she's everything to me, and so it's like I can't imagine being as happy with a male, although like I said, I'm not super hung up on the packaging. I consider myself queer versus just lesbian, and because I think it's a little bit more all-encompassing to how I feel about I think that throughout all of that, the thing that was missing for me was that it was always like 2 out of 3. Like, okay, like I physically and mentally connect, but not spiritually or intellectually or whatever. And with Lisa, it's like all of those things fell into place, And I think sometimes, like in straight relationships, like men and women, that think the struggle is communicating and how to relate their emotions, because we do it very differently. And so I think that's definitely the struggle, like not feeling like you're understood or being heard. And I never had that with her. It was like I could always be really honest about where I was coming from, and yeah, it's huge. You can connect so much more deeply because of that.
When you realized that you weren't straight, how long did it take you to come out?
It's weird. I was in that relationship with my college boyfriend, Tommy, and he, like I said, he wasn't he wasn't super fat, but he wasn't like super masculine either, you know? And it was like somewhere during that, I'm gonna say my junior year in college, when I was like, you know what? Like, again, it wasn't this big deal coming out moment. It was just more like, hey, whatever happens, happens. I'm just gonna kind of go with the flow. And at that point, I had like, after we had broken up, you know, I had a couple moments of like, you know, hooking up with a girl at a party, and I'm like, nothing's really happening. Like I'm not feeling any spark or anything. Like, this feels like I'm going through the motions, and like maybe I'm not, whatever. And then it was like the first time I'd ever kissed Lisa. It was like, it wasn't weird, it wasn't awkward, it just made sense, and it was amazing. And so so again, it was just kind of like, all right, just whatever happens, happens. And then it wasn't until we started dating, 3 weeks in, that we actually came out to family and friends. So the time span between that, I'm going to say, was about maybe 1.5, 2 years, you know? And it wasn't like, it wasn't like, you know what, I'm gay and I'm scared and I don't want to tell anyone. It was just kind of like, whatever, I'm going to see where this goes. Like, okay.
When you came out to your friends, how were their reactions? Did you ever get any negative reactions?
No. Yeah. At all. Yeah. And even people who you were like nervous to tell or whatever. And something I want to note about that, at least with my family, I told my youngest sister separately because I didn't want all of the adults. I was 22, she was about 12, and I didn't want any of the adults' reactions to inform her opinion. Because I'd always had a very honest relationship with her, because there's a big age gap, and so I almost felt like kind of halfway in between, like a mother or an auntie and a sister, you know? And because I babysat her a lot growing up, and I felt like I helped raise her a little, and so I never sugarcoated anything with her, and I never tried to like undermine her intelligence, because she was sharp from a really young age, like really clever, really smart, like in tune, really funny. And so I was like, I'm never gonna sell this kid short. And I told her, and her reaction was like, okay, like she didn't even think twice about it, you know? And that's a testament, not just to like how my parents raised her, but just who she was from the get-go. I feel like she was always just a very sweet, like loving little soul. Yeah.
What's life like now compared to before you kids?
Well, Lisa and I have a really nice life together, you know? Together a really long time, and there's a lot of security and confidence that comes with that, you know? Where okay, with any relationship, you never know where it's really going to go. But the weird thing was, when we first started dating, that I was never worried that I wouldn't see her again. I don't know. It was like this weird kind of calmness about it, you know? As exciting as it was and different, but I can't explain why, you know? So sometimes when you know, you know. Like, and when I came out to my family, and my dad was like, how did you know? He goes, I can't explain it. He's like, you have a sixth sense about your kids. Like, when you have kids, you'll understand. But he's like, there's certain things you just know. And I've always felt a little more spiritually connected to him in that way. But anyhow, it's like, so we've had an interesting kind of journey together. We met in Boston. We moved to Maui together. We'd only been together for about a year and a half when she decided, when she made the moves to get there. And I was like, people talk, you're not going to live on an island, whatever. Especially coming from the East Coast, you know, like that's a really far way to go. And I basically just invited myself. I was like, I'll go with you if you'll have me. We were just going to try to do long distance or see what happened. And I realized I got really depressed when she got her plane ticket. I was like, I don't want to be without this person, you know? And that's, in the grand scheme of things, it's still early on. And I laughed at her one time because she's like, if I was staying in Boston, I would ask you to move in with me. And I said, I promised my mom I wouldn't do that again until I was engaged. And that all went out the window with her, because then I decided to go to Maui. And I'm like, I'm uprooting my life to be with you. We're living together. You're going to find us an apartment. I'm going to tie up my loose ends here. I'll meet you out there. And that's how that went. We lived out there for about 2 years. It was a really cool, fun adventure. I felt a little aimless, we'll say. And then I found, and then I got into pole dancing, which is like now my passion. And that's a whole other thing. But that's where I found it, was just kind of out of boredom and needing to find a way to entertain myself. And then it turned into this now. It's my career path that I'm kind of heading on. But anyhow, and it just started out as a way to blow off steam with my friends. But from there, we quit our jobs and traveled for about 4 months. And during that time, my mom got sick, and so we went back to New York. She's from Poughkeepsie, Long Island, and we went back to New York and stayed with our respective families until my mom got better. So during that point, we had already had plans to come out here, because I said, okay, if we can't make it in Gayville, USA, then we go home. So that was our plan. And we came out here almost 7 years ago, and we loved it. And we're both so happy here. And so the way we've grown a lot as people, but the great thing is that it's good and bad that we're both artists. So you have the fact that we're both always working on projects, and we deal with the creative struggle and, coming up with new ideas and trying to keep that part of your brain alive, and feeling frustrated when things aren't going your way. And part of me is sometimes I'm like, why couldn't one of us have just been a banker? Like someone who's just bringing in money and logical and practical. And the two of us are both kind of whimsical sometimes, and sometimes I'm the one who has to bring us down to earth, which is weird, because I think I've gotten more and more eccentric over time. So the two of us have, it's like the longer we're together, the weirder we get, because there's that comfort where you're like, oh God, I can say whatever I want, whatever I'm thinking, it's great, not without any consequences, but you feel that kind of open space to do it. So, so I think we both grown a lot as people, and we've become better partners to each other, because we can be really direct about what we need. We can communicate pretty well. And it's like, God, I feel like we're miles from where we started. Because in Boston, it was like, okay, we're starting this new relationship, life is just different on the East Coast, and I think we've both evolved a lot. It's like, I'm pretty neurotic, and over time, I've gotten even more like hyperactive. Like, I was definitely like just a normal speed kind of kid, but I've gotten hyperactive as an adult, which can be really hard to deal with. You're like, I lay awake sometimes at night just like staring at the ceiling because I can't get my brain to turn off. It doesn't matter how body tired I am, my brain like just doesn't turn off. And so where was I? Yeah, it's just like we're at a totally different place in our lives. It's like we're now on a 5-year plan we're hopefully getting married in about a little over a year. We've been engaged for a year now, and trying to start planning a wedding back in New York. And then from that point, a couple of years after, we want to start to get into the family thing, but that's going to require us moving back home, because it takes a village. I think it's really hard to raise a family here now, especially because, like I said, we're both artists, and I'm like, oh, great. Like, no one's ever going to be making a lot of money. That's fine, because we both are committed to the idea that we'd rather have less stuff in a smaller house or apartment or wherever we live, if it means we can travel. Because that's one of the biggest things that she has done for me, is she's like, I didn't even know I was this adventurous, until we got together. And it's like, she's like, you better get your passport if you want to date me. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, which I did. And I've already filled up one passport book because of us being together and going places. And it's so fun. And like, I realized like that part of my education is as important to me as my actual college degree. Because I've seen the way other people live and got to experience like what their life is like, and God, it's been so eye-opening, amazing. And you're like, wow, just because we live in America doesn't mean we know how to do it the best way. It's true. It's like there are things to be gained from every other style of living, and just we've had amazing experiences. And I've realized now, at this point, I'd rather spend my money on experiences than stuff. And I'm so happy I realized that. But that's a big part of like, yeah, us getting together is coming to that common goal. I'm so happy that's where we are. Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
I think just that, like everyone's journey is very different, you know? And it's like I was really fortunate that I had a really supportive family, and so is she. In her family, there's her, 2 cousins that are gay, and she has an aunt who was already passed on that was gay. So, and her family isn't that big. So that's 4 people out of like 20, 25 people. So her family percentage-wise is very gay. And so it's like, but she had more of a mentor in her gay aunt. And it was like, you know, she played on a gay volleyball team. She, you know, like her aunt took her to kind of more, I don't know, traditionally like lesbian leaning artists, like, you know, things like that. She was always more tuned in. So she realized that at a much younger age. I think because of that, it was like she knew who she was and who she wanted. And so she pursued me, and like I was just kind of like, okay, whatever, you know, just going with it. And but yeah, so it's like we kind of came together on very different paths, you know. But I think just that to honor however you need to get to where you're going. Because like once I realized that I was really serious about pole dancing, and like I'd always done like ballet and jazz and tap growing up, all different styles, and this was the first one that was like I could, you know, channel all my crazy. It was acrobatic and really challenging, but also really artistically fulfilling when I realized that I could go a very theatrical route with it. And at one point when I was getting really serious about it, I was talking to my dad and I said, I don't know what to do. Like there's no like clear cut path to do this, you know, it's not like there's pole college, you know? So I'm like, you know, and originally I'd wanted to go to school for dance and I didn't get into the program I wanted to, and I had no backup plan. I'm like, well, there's no plan B. I don't know what else to do. So I ended up getting a degree in audio radio. So, I was like, I don't know what to do. There's no clear-cut path. And he said, you just got to make your own way, you know? And it's like so very simple, but he's right. It's like, I can't be worrying about what other people are doing, you know? It's like, I got to be honest about like what my own goals are, where I want to go with this. Because there's a lot of different things you can do with it. And I was like, wow, so that's always in the back of my brain, no matter what it is I'm doing, you know? And I've been bartending now for about 11 years, and it's like it has given me so much freedom and flexibility and time to pursue all these other things. And so it's like, and I love it. Like I love it more now than I did when I started, which is weird because most people get burnt out, like having to deal with the public in that way, and frankly dealing with drunks. So it's like, for me, it's like I still really love people, especially in this town. You get such an amazing variety of human beings. Yeah, and it's like I never know who I'm going to meet every day. You know, my experiences are always different, and I just started a new job, and you know, I was at a place for almost 7 years, and it felt like my family, and it was really hard leaving because I love them all so much. And I'm somewhere now where it's a new group of people, but they're already, I can see how great they are and how talented. And so I feel like I'm surrounded by people who are all really excited about something. And it feels good to be part of it. And, but yeah, it's like I have 2 things that I love to do. And, you know, career-wise, most people pick one thing and they focus on it. I've always kind of had a hard time focusing. And you know what? Rather than like fight it, like fighting your nature is the worst thing you can do. Whatever that is. You know, and I think that the one thing I've gotten right is never fighting my nature. I'm like, oh, I'm a night owl, great, I'm gonna work at night. You know, oh, I'm open to loving whoever, and then I end up with this stunning creature who's like just the most wonderful person I could have ended up with. You know, and who's brought out all the best parts of me, you know. And so I think bottom line, it's like, you know, honoring what really does make you happy, and yeah, not fighting your nature, just like let it be, no matter what it is. And like being here in San Francisco, it's like if you can do that anywhere, it's here. So I think that's why it has always attracted such an amazing variety of human beings, and I feel really happy to be a part of all of it. So yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. That was really cool.
You're welcome. Yay.